What's up, everyone, and welcome into the Buffalo Sports Collective. It is Friday, March 29, 2024. As always, I am PK alongside my co-host Phil for episode 271. We are quickly approaching episode 300. I think we will hit it if the Buffalo Bandits go deep into the playoffs, because once their season's over, we slowly wind down to one episode a week, and then it's tougher to get to that 300 numbers. But 2 episodes a week, I think we're approaching it very quickly.
Yeah, I think as it gets closer, if the Bandits have a chance to win the championship, we're just going to have to stop all episodes so our 300th can be a championship winning episode. I mean, it's going to take some prediction if they make it, because it's a 3-game series. So you're really putting all your hope on one of the last 2 games. But yeah, I think we should, 300 championship back to back. It'd be great.
I'm going to have to go back and research, but I'm wondering what episode their championship episode was. Like, was it 200? Like, we started keeping track of this, maybe 40 episodes ago? Because you one day were just like, wow, that's weird to have on there. And I remember that time. But it would be interesting to see if episode 200 lined up with the Bandits championship. I will try to remember, and don't hold me to this because I probably won't remember, but I'll try to remember to look back at that after this episode airs.
I like it. Also, happy opening baseball game day. I'm wearing my Bandits Bisons crossover t-shirt in honor of opening day for Major League Baseball, and now we can stop paying attention for the next 4 to 5 to 6 months.
Yeah, I've been running around all day today. I completely forgot that was today, and I have fantasy baseball leagues. Technically, opening day was like last week, though, just in a different country.
And then they went back to spring training.
Then they went back to spring training. It was a weird situation.
Won,
but yeah,
so
they shouldn't start season until any type of baseball season. I mean, the Bisons start, I think, today as of this recording. It was snowing. There was snow in my backyard like 3 days ago, and they're going to be playing baseball. It's domes everywhere for professional sports. But yeah, let's dive into this. Remember, you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, and TikTok at Buffalo Sports Collective, and on X and Blue Sky at Buffalo Sports Co. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel wherever you listen to podcasts. Check out our website at buffalosportscollective.com. Phil's article, Buffalo Bandits v. Panther City reaction, came out on Tuesday. I almost said Thursday, but yours is Tuesday. And then my power rankings for week 18 came out on Thursday. And then if you really want to skip around to this, which there'll only be 2 time descriptions, so you can check that out in the description of the show. Let's start with those putrid Buffalo Sabres. Sunday versus Calgary, after they dropped a nasty game to, I believe it was Vancouver, right? Round out the road trip 2-3, I think it was. They won 4-1 in Calgary. Krebs, Peterka, Tage, and Clifton were the goal scorers. UPL, unbelievable, 32 of 33 saves. Shots were 33-29 in favor of Calgary. And then they come home Wednesday. Everybody's happy to see them after that long break. They're still sort of in the playoff race because of who is still on their schedule. And they lost 6-2. Peterka and Clifton were the goal scorers. UPL 5 of 9 until he got pulled in the first period. And then Levi comes in 31 of 32 saves. Shots were 42-36 in favor of the Senators. Phil, I'm going to let you take away with whatever you want to talk about. And then I have a public statement to make about this team.
Public address.
Public address.
Not much. The Calgary game 4-1 is a lot nicer looking than it was. It was essentially 2-1 most of the game, and then 2 empty net goals. I mean, those are lovely to have, but 4-1 looks like a much better win against Calgary than it was. UPL played really, really well, kept them in it, allowed them to pretty much get that 2-1 score and then bury it late. And then UPL, I don't know what happened in that Ottawa game. The goals he let in, I mean, some of them, I guess, weren't on him, but a lot of them seemed like he just was not seeing the puck very well, and some of the misdirects or redirects that were right in front of him. I mean, the defense wasn't helping all that much either, but he did not look like he was ready to play that game, did not play very well. And then Levi came in and shut it down, and he did a great job. So I guess the only positive really between those 2 games, I thought Levi looked really good again in one of his very short NHL recovery stints that he's been doing. So I think that's just positive for the future. I think UPL, I'm not worried about him having a bad game after playing months and months and months of really, really good hockey, including just one on Calgary, saving all of it but one. And even the one that went in was a really solid power play goal by Calgary. So outside of that, pretty much a shutout. So not really worried about UPL's future as far as that goes. As far as the team goes, really embarrassing. Kind of like it has been most of the season. And like you said, slim hopes were alive against Ottawa, a must-win game. And I know UPL kind of let them down, but still they came out and just they weren't there. They weren't in it right from the get-go, and they just let the fans down. All from what you could tell, 10 that were still in the arena to watch this not very good hockey team anymore. And now it's over, and we get to officially pack it up and not keep saying like, oh, they have a little bit of hope. And they did give us a little bit of hope a little while ago, and then they lost to Detroit, and that pretty much put a stamp on it. But still had a chance with this West Coast trip, and then they did poorly there. Still had a smidge of hope against Ottawa, and just fell off a cliff at home, which is lovely to see for this team.
Yeah, so I'm not even going to address these two games because I, quite frankly, don't care anymore. Like they've ruined my soul. So this is like an overall. I haven't really given any type of passion with the Sabres in a while, and I think part of that is because I've been trying my best to be unbiased and just try to come at it as more of an outside absorber. That's a tough word to say.
Observer.
That's it. I'm not even going to try to attempt it a second time because I don't want to be in the blooper roll we've been building. But I love the Buffalo Bills. I love the Buffalo Bandits. But I think I've said this almost 3 years now. Buffalo Sabres mean more to me. They're just a different type of feeling for me because that was my team growing up. We watched the Bills in my house. You know, we went to the occasional Buffalo Bandits games and we kept track of them from a distance, but it was Buffalo Sabres. Like I remember being in the living room. I remember being down in the basement with my dad. I remember putting on the goalie gear. I've said the story for how many times, pretending I was Dominic Ashley. Like the Buffalo Sabres were my team. I know there's some people out there that they have this love for baseball, like our buddy John down in Texas. He loves the Mets. He's a diehard Mets fan. I know there's my dad's a diehard Cleveland Indians fan. I know there's people out there that have a team that just means so much to you, and that's the Buffalo Sabres for me. And Phil, there's the Pagulas have owned the Sabres for roughly, and I'm going to give Ben Matheson, he's the one that found the stat and put this out there. They have owned the Sabres for roughly 25% of their existence. They also account for 50% of the times they've missed the playoffs. It's putrid. Like, congrats on your new roof. Congrats on the Jumbotron. Guess what? Those two things aren't going to be putting butts in the seats. Those two things are not going to be the things that build a new generation of Buffalo Sabres fans. Like the fans like me that are now in their 30s, you're not going to have that in 30 years. Like there's no people out there that want to be the fans of the Buffalo Sabres that are in their, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 early teens years. Like why would you want to be a fan of a team that just folds under pressure, that doesn't know how to build a hockey team, that just fails at every single level of the franchise? They gave Don Granato an extension, and maybe I'm at fault for saying, hey, he's brought them to this level. Should he have gotten that extension that hasn't even kicked in yet? No, because he hasn't achieved anything. They haven't made the playoffs, and they've regressed in every single facet this season. They haven't made the playoffs since 2011. Phil, I was a year out of high school the last time they made the playoffs. The next closest is Detroit from 2016. They might make the playoffs. Ducks, 2018. San Jose, 2019. Both of those teams are making the playoffs, but there's going to be a 7-year gap from where you were last made the playoffs until the next closest if Detroit makes the playoffs this year. It's unacceptable. Like, you're a joke of a league. You're the joke of the league. It makes no sense how you can go through coach after coach and GM after GM and you keep making the same stupid mistakes over and over, that you don't put the right people in charge of the organization, that Terry Pegula has way too many fingers in this pot. Like, I don't know what else to do with this team because you can look at it. They're the youngest team in the league. And guess what? They're probably going to be younger next year because they're not going to have the money because they spent all the money. And I was in favor of giving those big contracts to the Tage Thompsons and the Dylan Cousins and the Rasmus Dahleens and so on and so forth because we saw what they were able to do in that 1 year. And then everything just regressed, whether you want to blame the injuries, the coaching staff, whatever it is. And you almost can't even blame the fans. Like, I'm surprised anybody even showed up. I'm surprised there were still fans in the seats after the first period because they were down, what, 5-0 at the end of the first? They were down 4-0 less than 10 minutes into the game. Like, imagine spending your hard-earned money. Like, there are people out there that struggle to get money, and this is their one date night or their one experience with their kid for the month or something like that, and you go to that game and you see the performance and the lack of effort and the lack of care that these players are putting out there. And then you have a coach that literally has no idea how to stop it. There's timeouts in hockey, Phil. He didn't use it after 1-0. He didn't use it after 2-0. He didn't use it after 5-0. He kept that timeout in his pocket because he said, oh, I felt like we were right in it. You're getting the doors blown off. 5-0. Your team doesn't care. This is the second time in 3 games that they've given up on UPL. Like, I don't know what else to do with this organization. They're a laughing stock of sports. Like, there's no other, besides the Jets, there's no other team that has a longer playoff drought. And 16 of the 32 teams make the playoffs. Like, even dating back to COVID, they let 24 teams in it. And guess what? You still weren't one of those teams. It's an utter embarrassment what this franchise has become under the leadership of Terry Pegula, or the lack thereof, because sometimes I wonder, does he even remember he has a hockey team?
Yeah, I was just looking up. I couldn't find any actual figures or anything, but in December of this year, Channel 2 did a little bit of a article on kind of Sabres merchandise, which is kind of what I was looking at. Exactly what you mentioned. Like, I have to imagine Sabres merchandise has taken just such a hit as far as jerseys, say everything, because who cares about a team that's not winning? And some of the responses from Buffalo natives and other shoppers were that exact thing. Like, they asked someone, like, are you going to go down the Sabres aisle? And they said no. And they said, why not? And said, well, the Bills are winning. I'll go look at their stuff. The Sabres aren't. And that's just that's a huge part of it. Like, if you want to talk about, I guess, money, even if, Pegula is just a businessman, you don't even want to talk about them necessarily winning because he wants a good hockey team, but you're having just a losing investment at this point with how little this team is winning, how, long it's been since they've been in the playoffs. Like you mentioned, you're just losing generations of fans, because when was the last time we felt any real passion toward the Sabres other than maybe the end of last season when they got extremely close, and like that was it. I mean, that was the exciting
the tank years.
Right. Right. The tank years to get a great player to hopefully resurge, have the team just come back to life. And now we know how that went, and it went horribly, horribly wrong. But now you're still without playoffs for this many years, and just Buffalo in general. I mean, outside of obviously the Sabres right now, but even the Bills going 17 years without playoffs, and now you got the Sabres at 13. I mean, just 2 professional teams where a lot of people make playoffs, and your team is missing just year after year after year in a row. Not even okay, we got in and now we've been bad again for 5 years. What happened? Like, we can't even get to that point of just sneaking in against, like you said, like half the league pretty much makes playoffs, and you cannot find a way to make it for now 13 really depressing years. And as far as this team goes, like you mentioned with Granato and things, I don't know. I don't know if there's hope, if there's an easy way to flip it, if, a new coach and a couple new players is enough. Are they, close enough to being a good team where something like that is all that's going to make the difference? I would hope to say yes, but we haven't seen it for an incredibly long time. So right now, I don't really have much hope for this team until we see it. I mean, until next year when it's January, February, March, and they're in the heat of a playoff race, or, actually in a playoff position until we see anything like that. I feel like I'm just going to assume they're not going to make playoffs because that's all we've seen for 13 years. And I just kind of at this point refuse to get my hopes up. And luckily for me, I mean, I do love the Sabres. I've had a lot of great memories. I remember way back when they were really good with the Zhitnik and the Shatans. And I remember I don't even remember why. I think I was just at home. But I had a poster for a really long time with a lot of the players' names on it of their, playoff times, and just remembering that, even though it seems literally like ancient history at this point. But back when that was all going on, I was a massive Sabres fan. I don't think I've ever really liked them as much as the Bills. I feel like they were harder to watch growing up as a kid. Even now, they're pretty much on cable MSG only, and then even ESPN Plus is blacked out even when they're away. Do not understand it, and I don't understand in 2024 how we're still dealing with blackout restrictions on media, but that's a whole different thing. But the Sabres just were, I loved them when they were really good, and then have pretty much fallen off since. I mean, obviously we cover them. I still love them a lot. Even this little bit of hope that we had this season where they had that little bit of a run and we were like, okay, they're actually pretty close to pushing for playoffs again. And it was that Detroit game. I remember watching it and actually being hopeful and being nervous and anxious watching the game, hoping that they would somehow pull it out, and then they did not, and here we are. But I don't know where to go with this team. They have too many games left that we are sadly going to have to cover but not care about. But just, I don't know, as far as hope goes, I feel like we've talked about this a few times now throughout the show, that we're at the exact opposite feeling of what we were last year. Like last year, they finished really strong, just missed. And I feel like there was a lot of hope for a young team that had finally put it together and made a huge run and just missed playoffs. And this was supposed to be the year to take some of that. And we knew it was still going to be tough. Everyone kind of predicted that they still wouldn't really make it, but we were hoping they would sneak in, and for them to come out and play as poorly of a season as they did. I feel like we've gone way backwards, and I feel like the hope is just diminished. Like last year, I feel like because they finished on a high and we were close and they were young, there was excitement for the next season. This, I don't know. I don't know where you go with this team. My hope is, like I said, gone until they prove otherwise. And I don't know what you can possibly do in the offseason. I don't know what this team needs to do. I don't know Pagula, Granato, Adams. I don't know. I don't have any answers for what this team currently is other than depressing and embarrassing.
Yeah, I'll just end it on two things. I also have no idea where they go, but it's not this. Like, I've defended Don Granato for a lot of his tenure here, but he's clearly not the coach. He's out of answers. He doesn't know how to get his players hyped up for important games. When you come home after a long West Coast trip and you're still just fighting and clawing to get into the playoffs, something that pretty much none of these players have even sniffed. I don't even know if there's a player on this team that sniffed the playoffs anymore. But you drop a 5, like you let 5 goals in the first period, and then you hold out hope maybe they can climb back, but it's not there. But I fully expect they're just going to run it back next year. They're going to call up Kulich, they're going to call up Rosine, they're going to call up Savoy and just say, hey, we got these flashy new players, come back, and Don Granato's not going anywhere because the contract extension hasn't even kicked in yet. So I fully expect that's what's going to happen unless they completely implode in these final games, which is possible because they're the Buffalo Sabres. But the only other thing, I really hope people understand that last year was fun covering this team, like breaking down those games and talking about the playoff opportunities and how good this team was. It was fun. And this isn't fun. Like, I know there's people out there that have to listen to this and for some reason choose to listen to this if you're not already just skipping it. And I don't blame you for skipping it. I don't want to be doing these type of rants. I don't want to have this negative, talking points of this team, but there's literally no positives. Like, there's no light. Last year we were talking about the light not being a train, and the train continues to keep running over my body because I believed it wasn't. But it's just, I hope that we are still doing this podcast when the Sabres are actually good again. Like, I'm at that point where I don't know how long we're going to do this podcast. I hope it continues to grow and continues to hit those new heights that we never dreamed it would do. Maybe we're, down the road, 5 years down the road, we're actually a known podcast more around Buffalo, and people actually listen because they enjoy our voices rather than we're just one of the few places that cover the Buffalo Bandits. But I really hope that, and I'm at the point where I'm wondering, will we ever cover a good Buffalo Sabres team while we're doing this podcast? Or will we just turn 40, 50, 60 years old and just go, why are we still doing this? And the Sabres still suck, because it is a realistic possibility that could happen. But I don't know if there's anything else you want to add, but I'm kind of dreading the rest of the Buffalo Sabres season, because I know they're going to go on some type of 7 out of 10 run and just, come close and say, hey, look at this end of the stretch here. We got a chance. We're bringing everybody back. And it's going to just be the definition of insanity, is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. And that is the definition of the Buffalo Sabres. There's a picture in the dictionary. It's a big Sabres logo right next to the definition of insanity. And, yeah, I tried not to yell. I don't think I got too hyped, Phil. I think I contained my just utter disappointment. And I know Pat loves these ones where he either feels like I'm yelling at him or he feels like I'm just disappointed at him. And I'm like, you got to remember, I'm not disappointing in you. I'm disappointing in life itself.
Yeah, you just sound sad more than angry. And I think that's where we're at. And that's kind of a little bit of the issue with the Sabres, because like you mentioned, if your fans are passionate and angry, that's a good thing. That means they still care. If they're just depressed and hopeless, not good. For the team, I don't know. I just out of answers for this team and out of hope, sadly. Especially with, I kind of assume exactly what you're assuming, that they will run it back, throw some new, even younger players on this already youngest team in the entire league. Let's just keep making them younger with players that have never played in the NHL or very little and have no track record, and hope that they all of a sudden click and are, 26, 27-year-old veterans playing at age 21, 22 in their first NHL season. Sounds like a winning formula. Run the coach back, because why not? We just extended him and put all of our faith in him. So should be a good time next year. Cannot wait.
So let's try to put ourselves in a good spirit. And I know one way that we will get in a good spirit is talking about Tap That Tap Room, because I think it's also important to remember that and we've said it multiple times, but the sponsors that we bring on to this show are ones that we actually feel passionate about. So where you heard me not feeling very passionate about the Buffalo Sabres because I'm down in the dumps, my energy just rose back up when I was like, oh yeah, we're sponsored by Tap That Tap Room. So Phil, take it away with our first sponsor.
Yep, Tap That Tap Room at 363 Delaware Street in Tonawanda, New York. They are Buffalo's first women-owned self-pour bar featuring 30 consistently rotating taps of ciders, seltzers, sours, beers, and malt beverages. They currently have one on tap called the Naked Lollipop Shirley Temple Sour by Froth Brewing, and it sounds like it has a lot of potential. I went through very quickly the list of 30. I don't know if you've ever had a Shirley Temple in general, but they are delicious, and I do hope I get the chance to try that one.
Yeah, that one does sound delicious. I've never had a Shirley Temple, but the way it came off your mouth there sounds delicious. Yes, I did try to make it a little awkward there, but I think I succeeded. But Friday, they do have some events coming up. Friday, they got Tap That Drag Show, Drag Queen Show, I apologize. $5 cover. The show starts at 10 p.m. I know my wife was looking into this because she's into that RuPaul's Drag Race show that's on every Friday at MTV, and I have watched it. It's pretty good. There are some funny moments in it, so that is one thing that would really pique her interest. And then Saturday, Bandits Watch Party, 1 p.m. with giveaways, including giveaways to the final Buffalo Bandits home game, which could be their final home game period this year if they don't make playoffs. But doors open at noon because it is a 1 o'clock game. Get there early, and if they do stumble and lose, you can just stay there longer and just drink your sorrows away.
Yep, you can check out the rest of their upcoming events on their Facebook page and all of their other socials, as well as their website, tapthattaproom.com.
So let's dive into our second portion here, the Buffalo Bandits. We kind of just preferenced them a little bit, but they face the Wings on Saturday, 1 p.m. Philly's coming in 5-8 currently as of this recording, but they're playing Saskatchewan right now. I think they're losing last time I checked as well. So they could be 5-9, or they could be 6-8. Who knows? You'll know before we do. Buffalo's coming in at 7-7. Last year they played twice. Buffalo won both. 13-9 win in Philly, and then they won in overtime in Buffalo, 13-12. Phil, I don't know if any of these numbers stand out, but last year, remember, a lot of the forwards were out, so Kluch and Frazier didn't play in games 1 and 2. Byrne was out game 2. Jones wasn't there. Mitch Jones wasn't there for game 1 for Philadelphia. Philadelphia went through a lot of changes in the offseason. No Matt Rambo. Krupinski. I know I was going to say it right the first time, and then I second guessed myself. And then Matisse, he's in New York. So a lot of the mainstays that used to be on Philly are out the door. And, Mitch Jones is there, but he was only there for one game. Reza Terrace is still there. Riordan's still there. But a very different makeup between these two teams than what we saw in those two games last year.
Yeah, it's funny whenever we go through these breakdowns of last year's games and how many times you have to mention for the forwards, was their game one, was not their game two, or was their game two, was not their game one. And part of that goes back to not only how injured the team was last year, but also simply not being in unified standings. We saw these teams 2 or 3 times throughout the season. So they did have more than one game against a lot of teams, especially the former East. But yeah, Philly, I mean, I don't know. We talked about this a little bit before the show. It was a team that very surprisingly, from some outlets and previews that you and I kind of saw when we were creating our own, how we thought the season would finish, the standings, end of year, who would make playoffs, where we thought they would line up. A lot of people had Philly very high. You and I were shocked and confused, and this is why. I don't see them as a very strong team. And yes, they have some pieces for sure. And I would assume people were maybe thinking Higgins would take another step forward, that the whole team in general would. But I don't know. I don't think you saw it really happening. I did not see it happening. And they are 5-8 for a reason. They're currently down 8-3 against the Rush. So they're headed to 5-9. And I think that's kind of how good this team is. They do have some former Bandits on the team, including even Ian Lord, who is still playing lacrosse. And I think they said he was 38. Good for him. Keep it going. Why not? Long time ago, big Bandit fan of his. But yeah, the team, I mean, they Jones stands out the most, obviously, but even him, he's having a good season on a not so great team, but none of them are really jumping off the page. This team doesn't really excite me. This game, I know, is exciting for the Bandits because they absolutely need to keep winning and need to start winning after the loss. But Philly just does not do it for me. So it's a bit of a just kind of boring team with some good names on it.
Yeah, I patted myself on the back, and I was patting you on the back as we did it. And you can go back and check the tapes if you want. We couldn't understand the hype behind Philly. Like, we were trying, we looked, we know they made some moves in the offseason, but we just didn't see where this team fit into the top 8. And I don't even think we had them in the top 10. Like, we were pretty low. We had their season going about what they're happening right now. And this is kind of what we saw, where they're not flashy. They don't have a ton of pieces. Yes, Mitch Jones is one of the best players in the league. Yes, Joe Rezateris is one of the best players in the league. But then what else do they have? Like, they tried to get quicker, and in doing so, this team gives up, I think, the most shots in the league. So while Zach Higgins might not have taken that next step, I don't know how much we can actually put on him, because he's on pace to just utterly smash the save record for the year of Anthony Cosmo, set like in 2014 or something like that. I know I tweeted out when I was doing my article either last week or the week before, but this team just gives up so many opportunities that when you want to play with speed, you kind of give up some of that defensive prowess. And I think that's kind of what happened. But I'm in the same boat. Before we go over the numbers, I'm in the same boat where, yes, this is a very important game for the Buffalo Bandits. You need to take care of business here. You need to defeat Philly if you want a chance to continue to get closer and closer to locking in your spot in the playoffs. That's no question about it. And I don't know if it's the 1:00 Saturday game. I don't know if it's because it's a road game. I don't know what it is, but I just can't get myself up to, and I know you said it before we even started recording, I can't get myself up to be super excited for this game, which is weird because Buffalo's sitting there at 7-7, and you lose, you fall down to 7-8. You win, you get to 8-7. But I there's nobody that I'm really interested in watching on Philly. Like with Panther City, Jonathan Donville, going to be the face of the league or one of the faces of the league as he continues to grow. Nick DeMood's going to be one of the best goalies in the league. And you had pieces on Panther City. Well, whether you knew about them or not, they have key pieces on that team that are fun to watch, that are interesting to watch. Even Will Malcolm and Callum Crawford comes back. So you got some bigger names here. Yes, you got the Joe Resetarich. Yes, you got the Mitch Jones. Yes, you got, Blaze Reardon, who plays goalie in the PLL and is the captain of this team here. But I can't get myself up to being super excited and super interested in this game just because I think Philly lacks that name presence. And I don't know if it's because, Mitch Jones was playing West for so long and then finally comes back East and is on Philly, but Philly is not that great of a team. I just, as we go through these numbers, maybe I can get myself up for it, but it's just, it's just another game on the schedule for me, which again is weird because they're sitting at 7-7 and it's such a critical game for the Buffalo Bandits.
Yeah, I mean, you look at their number one scorer is 27 goals. That is tied for 23rd highest in the league, as their number one goal scorer is 23rd in the league in goal score. And then you have players.
Hey, remember, there's only 15 teams in this league.
Right. And then you flip over to the top four listed and you got 61 or 47 goals, 43, 42, 41. So it's just, again, this team is just, they're not that exciting. But if you want to get excited about this game, there's two other ways to look at this, which are one is good and one is terrifying. Absolutely a trap game. For sure.
Yes.
As we continue to talk about how a team can be bored against this team. They did just get absolutely crushed by the Warriors. They're currently losing to the Rush, but at the same time, they did beat the Georgia Swarm 13-8, and then they only lost to Panther City in overtime 9-8. So, Panther City just beat you. Georgia Swarm is above you in the standings, and they beat one of them, almost beat the other, and that's just 2 games ago. So as boring as this team is, it can absolutely be a scary trap game. And at the same time, what I'm really hoping it actually is a get-right game for this team, because this team needs just a monster win. They have not had many this entire season. They haven't had one in a very long time. That kind of happens when your defense is allowing 13 goals a game for 8 straight. And even when they're not, it's 12 and 11 and 10. So still not doing amazing. But this is just a very good opportunity to get right. But at the exact same time, a lot of times those get right games are also trap games that can go the other way very quickly. So not going to say I'm nervous about this one, but it does have trap game written all over it, sadly.
Yeah, just 2 things on that one. Well, I guess 3 things. Their biggest margin of victory was 4, and that was back in Colorado when they won 12-8. And we also said get right game versus Vancouver, and they lost that one as well. But yeah, don't hear what we're not saying. We're not saying that Philly can't beat Buffalo. They very well could be. And we're not trying to downplay what Philly is and what they have the potential to be in this game. They can be a very dangerous team. Zach Higgins can go on a streak here. Mitch Jones can just pump up 10, 11, 12 points and feed all the other players. We're not saying that this should be a cakewalk for the Buffalo Bandits. It's just, I can't get myself hyped up from an outsider's perspective of an NLL. Like, if I wasn't a fan of any team and I just cover the league as a whole, this would not be a game that would pique my interest. Like, if there were 4 slates of games at 7 o'clock, this would probably be one of the lower ones on the docket because there's nobody in Philly that really stands out to me. So we'll start going over the numbers here. Buffalo goals for is third in the league at 12.72. Philly's down at 11th at 11.15. And then goal differential and goals against is very similar. I don't know why I said goal differential because that's not what this is. Goals against average for the year. Buffalo is 13th at 12.64. Philly is down at 12th at 12.54. So both teams struggled to keep the ball at the back of the net, and one team, being Buffalo, does a better job of putting the ball in that net.
Yeah, and we've talked about this on pretty much every show, I don't know, maybe the last 10 games now, that I'm waiting, and I feel like we are going to continue to wait. This might be the game, so I'm not saying that this is going to be the game that we have to keep waiting for, but the defense, at some point, I just am pretty much insistent that they are going to click. At some point, Vince and the defense are going to switch back into what they were able to do last year. The pieces are slowly coming together. The rookies are coming along. Dawson is settling in. Bomberry is back. This defense is just, at some point, they are going to flip a switch, and they will be back to the defense they were last year. And I have just not given up hope. I know that we've gone over the defense a lot recently. Obviously, they are 13th in the league in goals against, so there's a reason we keep going over and nitpicking on the defense, but they've shown flashes of being really good, and over the last, few games, they've shown that they are getting better. Like, the communication seems to be better. Even this last game, I know they lost, but I thought they played really well overall against Panther City. A few breakdowns here and there, but for the most part, I thought they played really good on defense. And I think the game before that, they played pretty well. And the game before that, they played pretty well. So I do think they are slowly building and slowly getting there. And at some point, this team is going to just all of a sudden, flip that switch and be a true lockdown, scary defense again. And I think it is coming up, and I really hope it's this game. It might not be, but I have not lost hope that this defense can absolutely still flip that switch and just turn it on and lock a team down to 5, 6, 7 goals in a game.
And I mean, we've even seen it for bits and pieces of the early season. And I know the defense is very different than it was then, but they give up 9 to San Diego, they give up 9 to Georgia, and they give up 8 to Colorado. So yes, it's been a while, but at least we have seen it this year that they're able to do that. So before we dive into the players and everything, let's get our other sponsor out of the way here, Mr. Sizzles. Phil, I will admit I'm off today, which is Good Friday right now. I'm very tempted, as I'm sitting here recording at 8:15, but I'm putting myself in the Friday shoes. I'm very tempted to go to Mr. Sizzles and just sit there when there's probably not a ton of customers on a Friday and grab a burger and a milkshake.
It's not a bad idea. I will be working,
tempting.
So that is lovely.
Maybe I'll
for
bring
me.
you one.
That'd be very kind of you. Our second ever sponsor is Mr. Sizzles, like PK said, at 346 Connecticut Street in Buffalo, New York. You just might see PK there tomorrow. He is going to confirm his plans. They are open 7 days a week, 11 to 11, with a brunch menu on Saturday and Sunday from 11 to 3.
So we've been talking about them a lot with the different food options and what they have going for them there. But they did put out the other day, and we thought we'd give this a bit of a shout out just in case anybody listening knows, or maybe you are somebody that's looking for a second job or just a step up somewhere, or this sounds like a business that you want to become a part of, because I mean, they do amazing work with all their workers. We were there firsthand last Buffalo Bandits home game, and we saw how amazing their staff was. But they're currently hiring for all 3 locations. Yeah, 3. They're looking for assistant general manager, a kitchen manager, a bar manager, a line cook, a milkshake attendant, bartender. So if you see anything that kind of tickles your fancy, send in your resume, or even just pop out to the Buffalo location and fill out an application. I think anybody that has anybody in their life that maybe is stuck working in this type of industry in a place that might not be, feel appreciated in that line of work, I feel like, and knowing the people that work with Mr. Sizzles and the way that they are run, that whole mindset that you might feel unappreciated will completely go away if you sign on and, go to work with Mr. Sizzles, just because the firsthand interactions we've had with them, unbelievable people a part of that organization.
Yeah, I was gonna kind of mention the same thing. They're family owned. They're very
Yep.
family oriented. They're great with their staff. And if you even have any experience in any of these areas and you work for some kind of national chain where you just don't feel as valued as part of the local community or just from that organization, and you're looking for a bit of a mix up, this is absolutely a great place to work and a great place to give them a chance. So you can check them out at their socials on Facebook, Instagram, or at mrsizzles.com for more information, or to check out the menu and see what PK might be looking to get tomorrow
Maybe I'll
slash
see you
today.
there. So let's go over the players to watch. The righties for the forwards: Sam LeClaire, number 92, Ben McIntosh, number 90, Joe Rezateris, number 15, and the young gun Jack Jankowski, number 50. For the lefties, Holden Cattoni has come into his own once finally getting healthy with this team, number 19. Mitch Jones, the always dangerous threat there, number 24. And then Blaze Reardon, number 10. Tate Cattoni, the family member of Holden Cattoni. He has had a decent season coming over from, I want to say it was New York. I don't quote me on that. I can't remember exactly where he came over from. I think he was on Philly last year anyway, so disregard all of that. Number 19, but he's currently on the practice squad, so he might not be active in this game altogether, but I wanted to give his name out just in case, because, I am the curse of death talking about certain players, because Ty Thompson last week, I said he was probably going to go off, and he did for 2 goals.
Yeah, last year he played for Philly. The year before that, it was Panther City Lacrosse Club.
Okay. I couldn't remember. I knew it was a Cattoni. I knew Holden Cattoni came over from Rochester. I wasn't sure if Cattoni came in. I think it was Hunter Lemieux that went out the door.
I believe
it was a lot of movement this offseason, Phil.
Former Sabre Lemieux.
That was Brendan Lemieux.
Anyway,
God, I loved him.
I think he's doing well, isn't he? Doing well, just not
I don't know. I just liked it because he was a fighter.
That's fair. So, yeah, you got me all thrown off. Going through these players, we've already kind of mentioned a little bit about this team. Not the highest scoring team, not the largest depth, and kind of weird, a strange team. They have, all of them have a decent amount of assists, and none of them have a lot of goals. So, I mean, outside of Mitch Jones, obviously Mitch Jones can be that game breaker, and as Joe Rezateris is the game breaker on the other side. They're both extremely talented forwards. We are not trying to downplay them or not credit them. They are both really good, even though Rezateris is not having the mind-blowing season he had. Was it last year? He had over 100 points, I believe, and just really took off. And Mitch Jones,
it might have been when he was with Albany.
Was honestly. That 2 years ago? Sorry, I forgot that was 2 years ago. 2 years ago he had over 100 points. Mitch Jones has that ability as well. So one on the left, one on the right, you absolutely need to look out for. McIntosh is a great secondary piece, as is Riordan and Cattoni. I actually really liked Cattoni when he was on Rochester, with Rochester. Really would have liked him if he was available. Obviously, we all know that the Bandits forwards are locked and loaded, and they don't really have any room for anybody, so it's hard to want anyone in the forward group, but really liked Cattoni when he was with Rochester. Like you said, he's coming into his own for that team as well. So they do have some supporting cast, and they do have some all-stars. They're just not, Dane Smith or Josh Byrne or Jeff Teed or Austin Stotts, or Connor Fields. They're just not the tippy top of the league. And that's this year. I mean, Mitch Jones has been up there. Joe Rezateris, like I just mentioned, has been up there. So they do have the ability to do it. They just have not been able to really put it together this season. So something you absolutely need to look out for on the defense, but also a good opportunity for the defense to really find their footing against a struggling team.
Yeah, you pretty much summed up what I was going to talk about for the defense. So we'll motor on through here with the transition in defense. Chad Tutton, close to my heart, maybe one day. He came over from Georgia last year, and I think he's in his last year of his deal. Number 12. I still think he would fit perfectly with the Buffalo Bandits, but I'll move on. Scott Dominy, number 13, he came over in an offseason move. Alex Pace, number 41, always liked his game. Mike McConnell also came over in the offseason, number 96. Isaiah Davis-Allen, number 29. He was their face-off man before they went out and got Nick Rowlett. He's winning 49% of his draws right now, so that will be an interesting battle between him and Connor Farrell, 2 guys from the PLL that pretty know each other, so that'll be interesting. 2 true Fogos going back and forth between each other. And then Ryan Wagner, number 94. A lot of these guys do cause turnovers. And like we said, they are a speedy team, so you will have to watch them in the transition game. But Buffalo's been pretty stinking good this year in the transition game.
And their forwards have also picked up pretty well.
Yeah, I
in
was
the
going to say that
transition
too.
game as
Yeah,
well.
you can never count them out chasing one of these guys down.
And for the defense, I mean, they're just, again, not jumping off the page. Cause turnovers by all of them. I mean, Pace and Wagner lead the way with 12 and 10. Both are okay numbers, not, just mind-blowing numbers to me, but not bad. And then Ian Lord is that veteran back there. I mentioned him already and pretty much bringing him up again because he leads the team with block shots with 16. So he's doing a good job there and has that veteran presence. They have some decent defensive players. Like you mentioned, you like Tutton quite a bit. Dominique's also a solid defender. So they do have some pieces back there. Again, just not that exciting of a team. Man, I feel bad describing this team because I cannot get excited about their players, and they're good lacrosse players. They're good NLL players. They made it professionally, so I feel bad kind of downplaying them. They are good players. Philly just does not.
It's just
do
the
it for
excitement
me.
level. Yeah.
It's just they don't do it for me.
Yeah, and I think the other thing to kind of take note here is the loose balls, where your highest one is Chad Tutton with 76. There's going to be secondary and tertiary, yeah, I know that word, Phil,
Wow,
opportunities on Zach Higgins. And we started off this section of the show talking about Zach Higgins having to face a ton of opportunity, a ton of shots this season. There's going to be plenty of opportunities that you can cash in and beat Zach Higgins. It's just when the opportunity presents itself, you have to put that ball in the back of the net. That's what cost them last week, where Nick DeMoo just got super hot making, I think ended up seeing the stat. He made like 18 and 19 saves in the third quarter, which was just unbelievable. But you can't let Zach Higgins settle in. You got to hit him early, and you can't miss those secondary opportunities, because Buffalo has been pretty good at gathering those secondary opportunities and putting the ball in the back of the net. You remember how many of them Ian McKay in the Rock game, where he was able to gather that loose ball and cash it home to take that lead. There's going to be opportunities for you there. You just can't miss them.
Yeah, and speaking of not trying to downplay this team too much, but the Rush are up 9-4 with 11 minutes left in the third. So they are themselves doing a good job getting to Higgins early. And then that's the other kind of random-ish thing I wanted to bring up with this team is that I don't know where they play. Do you know where they play? I was going to look it up and then I forgot to look
Philly?
it up. Yes.
I believe they play where the Flyers play.
Yeah, they must have a lot going on at that arena that you are forced to play a Thursday night game.
Well, this is the makeup game, remember? The one
right.
that got snowed out. Yeah. But
even
still
Saturday
stands
at 1.
Yes, there's Philly. When we look at the schedule, Philly had a ton of
all over the
oddball game times. I think they had like a 4:00 game as well. But yeah, they've had a very condensed schedule. I know one of them was because of the snow that they had to reschedule, and that's the one that's being played right now in versus Saskatchewan. But yeah, their home arena has a lot of habitants that forces them to play at odd times.
And that is the other thing that we haven't really gone over, even though we are currently kind of both watching the score of this game. They are playing right now.
Less than 48 hours from now. Yep.
So yes, they have about, like you just mentioned, 48 hours. They are playing 2 games. I know it's not technically back to back, but still 2 games in a week. And who knows, I would hope that these players for Philly are off the next couple of days and none of them have to go back to work for Friday, but you never know. A lot of these guys have 2 jobs. Who knows what they could have gotten off as far as work goes. So in theory, your Philly team coming in that you're playing at a very strange 1 p.m. on Saturday has already played a game on Thursday. They should be coming in pretty exhausted from all of this and potentially looking at a 5-9 season that they don't really care about. I mean, this is, again, lining up for a trap game for sure, but at the same time, really lining up for the Bandits to just come in there, be the better team, and just hopefully crush someone. Please just annihilate this team because you can do it.
But yeah, we talked about Zach Higgins a lot, so I won't really talk about him too much, but he's 5-8, 12.13 goals against, and a 78 save percentage. Deacon Knott is the goalie tender behind him. He's appeared in a couple games, but he's more of that growing young guy that's going to be the face of that position for Philadelphia for years to come. But it's Zach Higgins between the pipes. Just get to him early. There's going to be a lot of chances that you can take on him. You got to cash it in.
And like you said, the amount of saves that he is
It's
being
ridiculous.
forced to make is ridiculous. And I think that's
I think
just
he's in the
another,
top 5, and he's only played in 13 games.
yeah, it's depressing for him.
Shouldn't happen.
That
Yeah.
is for sure.
Yeah.
But
Record books.
sure, that's good. But like you mentioned, I mean, this, you can just wear him down early, get to him early, and just keep shooting and shooting and shooting and shooting if they allow you to, and he will likely get exhausted from attempting to make so many saves in front of this not so great team.
So, Phil, players, all that kind of stuff we talk about every week. What is your prediction for Buffalo v. Philly on Saturday at 1 p.m.?
I don't know. I don't know if I truly feel this way, but I'm going to just go for it because I want them to just light it up. I'm going 15-9, just blow someone out. It's their second game. Yes, they're home, but it's their second game. And if they lose this one, playoffs are looking already not going to happen. And this would officially just demolish them if they lose to the Rush. So this team will be coming into their second game on a random day on a Saturday at 1. I don't think they're going to have much heart in it. And I hope the Bandits come in rested and just ready to absolutely annihilate a team. So I'm going 15-9.
Yeah, you talked about it earlier that you think this is the type of game where the defense can finally click and that the pieces have been coming together and everything looks, while the number of goals allowed doesn't look great still, the play on the field tells a much different story than what we've been seeing. And eventually this has got to click. Eventually everything's got to be put together. So I think this is a game going down the stretch facing 4 teams that are currently under 500 that you can pull these 4 games out. I have them winning 13-9.
So pretty close. I mean, just couple
pretty
more
spot
for
on.
me. I'm just really want them to crush a team, but
Phil's the optimist around Easter time.
I'm just sick of these close games from the Bandits. Just go out there and do what you do best and crush someone finally.
So the milestone moment, the fastest milestone minute in all the land. Still looking for a sponsor for this segment. So Uber, Lyft, I don't know, somebody fast. Energizer Bunny, maybe there. I don't know.
Not bad.
We're still looking for possible. I'll name this segment after you. I don't care. All these possible milestones can be found on X at Buffalo Sports Co. And we post them the lead up to each game. So if you miss one and you don't want to listen back, you can check for them right there. There's quite a few of them. So away we go. Josh Byrne is 2 goals away from setting a new career high. Josh Byrne is also 4 assists away from setting a new career high. Chris Cloutier is 2 goals away from setting a new career high. Ian McKay is 1 caused turnover away from setting a new career high. Dane Smith is 2 caused turnovers away from setting a career high. In mirror image, Nick Weiss is 2 caused turnovers away from setting a new career high. But Steve Priolo is 2 caused turnovers away from tying Brody Merrill for 3rd place in NLL history. He averages 1.2 a game. Chris Cloutier is 2 goals away from passing Sean Williams for 10th place in Buffalo Bandits history, and he's 4 away from tying Roger Weiss for 9th. With 1 goal, Josh Byrne will move into a tie for 9th place in a Buffalo Bandits season, tying John Tavares, which he set in 2005, and himself in 2023. He is 4 away from tying Sean Williams for 8th place set in 2001. He is 3 assists away from moving into a tie for 10th place. This is Josh Byrne in a Buffalo Bandits season, tying himself, which he set in 2022. With 5, he will move into a tie for 9th place with John Tavares set in 2001. With 6, he will move into a tie for 8th place with Dane Smith set in 2016. And with 7, he will move into a tie for 7th with Sean Evans set in 2019. Couple more here. With 1 more point, Josh Byrne will move into a tie for 10th place in a single Buffalo Bandits season, tying Dane Smith set in 2019 and John Tavares set in 2015. With 2 points, he will move into a tie with John Tavares for 9th place set in 2017. With 4, he will move into a tie with Dane Smith for 8th place set in 2018. And with 6, he will move into a tie with Dane Smith and John Tavares for 6th place set in 2015 and 2003, respectively. With 5 points, Dane Smith will move into a tie for 10th place in a Buffalo Bandits season, tying himself from 2019 and John Tavares 2015. If all these numbers sound familiar, it's because I just said it with Josh Byrne. With 6, he will move into a tie with John Tavares for 9th place set in 2007. With 8, he will move into a tie for himself set in 2018 in 8th place. And with 10, he will tie himself for 7th, set in 2015. Now the Dane Smith assist watch. I know I'm going a little bit longer. I'm trying to go quick. It's fast milestone minute. With 70, he has 77 assists on the year, which is good for 5.5 a game. He is on pace for 99. With 3, he will move into a tie for 10th in an NLL season with Sean Evans and Jeff Teat. With 5, he will tie for 8th place with Mitch Jones and Garrett Billings. With 6, he will tie for 5th with Sean Evans, Josh Anderson, and Callum Crawford. With 7, he will tie for 4th with Mark Matthews. And with 8, he will tie 3rd place with Ryan Lee. It's a shame that I have to say so many of these because Dane Smith and Josh Byrne are having such elite seasons.
Yeah, I think you only screwed up 3 times, and they were all very similar screw-ups. You had John Tavares setting it in 2015 and 2017, but it's 2005 and 2007. And then you did it again. But overall, I mean, that's not bad. You did a great job.
That's why you check Twitter or X for all these, because if I screw up, they're right there.
Also, I know you didn't get to it because it's likely too far away, but pretty funny to hear you listen or list all of the Dane Smith assist people that he is going to tie, and you know, stopped at 3rd because 8 would be a great game for him. And then, you know, number 2 and number 1 are, I believe, himself. So
I can't see him getting those numbers in one.
Oh
game
no,
to get there.
Yeah,
it's possible.
It's just fun to see all these other names, and then eventually number 2 and number 1 are just going to be Dane Smith fighting Dane Smith, which he fought already, and he has bested himself once, and can he do it again? And hopefully, like you said, he's on pace for 99. He just, you know, these bottom teams that are a little bit bottom. I know we got Calgary and Christian Del Bianco eventually coming up, but hopefully you can just pack some stats in there, you know, get a little 10 assist game and really just blow it out, and that would be great.
Yeah, it would also be great because that's less stuff I have to mention on here. That's fastest milestone minute, not fastest milestone minutes. Come on, guys. Stop being so good so there's stop being so many milestones. But let's go over the NLL outlook real quick. The game that's currently going on right now, Saskatchewan versus Philly, Thursday at 7 p.m. So yeah, you guys know the results before we do. So Philly is playing 2 games in less than 48 hours. Saturday, 7 p.m., Halifax versus Rochester. Rochester needs a win there, and Halifax definitely needs a win. So I think that's personally, in my opinion, the game that I'm going to be keeping my eye on the most. And then Vancouver is in Las Vegas Saturday at 10 p.m. I do have to say, 4 games is very weird, but at least they're spaced out. So you get to watch all of them. And they're not like, hey, 4 games, 3 of them are at 7.
Yeah, sadly, very similar to how I feel about this game is kind of how I feel about this weekend of games. Saskatchewan and Philly. I mean, the Rush are obviously still trying to stay in the playoffs.
It's 11-5 right now.
Yeah, those are kind of boring. And then Vancouver and Vegas, pretty boring game there, especially for standings purposes. And then, like you mentioned, Halifax, Rochester, definitely the game to kind of keep an eye on, and really the only other one there is, and the only one of the entire weekend outside of the Bandits that means much. But I don't even know. I know. I don't want to say you and I are opposite, because we're not. We both, obviously, you're fighting for the Bandits to make playoffs more than anything. I'm still personally trying to have them fight for top 4, but I just want them in. So I would assume we kind of go over this a little bit every time we do this. You want Halifax to win to knock Rochester down, is what I would assume you are looking for.
Sadly, yes. I understand that if Rochester wins, Halifax goes to 8-8, and if Buffalo wins, Buffalo goes to 8-7. So theoretically, you would jump both Panther City and Halifax this week, but Rochester would be right on your tail. So if you were to lose and Rochester wins, yes, it brings Halifax down to 8-8, but it puts Rochester at 7-7. They have a game in hand. Yes, you have the edge over them, but you fall below them. So I am still trying to get this team into the playoffs before I worry about seeding, in my opinion, which I get. If perfect world, Buffalo wins, Halifax loses, Rochester wins, and so on and so forth, and you jump up to that 5th seed in a perfect world. But Buffalo's been far anything but perfect this year.
Yeah, I figured that's where we're at. Again, hopeful me wants Rochester to win, because I still want a 4 seed in a first game home playoff, especially with the one and done format. It's scary, even though Buffalo's been pretty solid on the road in playoffs and in general. But yeah, I think in general, you kind of want Rochester to lose it, to just push the Bandits further into the playoff picture, which is the most important thing.
Yep, that's why head-to-head matchups are so important, especially this time of the year.
But, especially when you play a team once all year.
Yeah, that's what we said. Every game is super important. Phil, is there anything else to this episode you would like to add before we shut it down for the Easter weekend that is?
Hope everyone has a lovely Easter weekend.
Yeah, same with you. Have a very happy and safe Easter. We will be back
Travel safe
on Monday for April Fools. What practical jokes will we be playing on each other? So stay tuned for that one, but also stay tuned for more Sabres talk. Whoopee! And then Buffalo versus Philly reaction.
That's a joke right there. That's for April Fools.
There you go. April Fools. Thank you all for listening to another episode of the Buffalo Sports Collective. Thank you to Tap That Tap Room and Mr. Sizzles for sponsoring this show and this episode. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, and TikTok at Buffalo Sports Collective, and on X and Blue Sky at Buffalo Sports Co. Visit our website at buffalosportscollective.com. Phil's article dropped on Tuesday. My article dropped on Thursday. So check those out. Subscribe to our channel wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you please leave us a review on Apple and Spotify. Until next time, bye-bye.